My son and his wife walked into my shop like they owned the place. Not like family, like people who came to collect something. They didn't say hello, they didn't ask how I was doing, they didn't even look at the customers shopping in the aisles. They walked straight past the counter, straight to the back, straight to my office. And when I saw my son, Nathan, standing there with his jaw tight and his eyes cold, my chest went still. Because I knew this wasn't a visit for love. Veronica stood beside him, hands clasped like she was praying, but her smile was sharp, the kind that looks polite until you realize it's really a threat. And then I noticed the third person, a man I didn't know, tall, silver hair, expensive suit, calm grin that didn't fit in my little office. He stood behind them like a shadow with authority. Veronica gestured toward him. "This is Pastor Garrett." Pastor? Of course. Nathan cleared his throat like he was reading words he'd practiced. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't offer them seats. I didn't ask what they wanted. I just watched them, the way you watch a storm before it hits. Veronica stepped forward, voice sweet as honey. "We need $500,000. For a second, I didn't react, not because I didn't hear her, but because the number was too absurd to feel real. 500,000? I repeated. Veronica nodded like I asked her what day it was. "Yes, it's reasonable considering your success." Nathan wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the floor like it could hide him. Pastor Garrett smiled gently like this was a friendly conversation and not an ambush. "We're not here to cause trouble," he said. "We want to resolve this peacefully." That word, peacefully, always shows up right before someone tries to harm you without leaving bruises. Veronica's smile widened. "We're family," she said, "and family helps family. You owe us." Oh, that word hit harder than the number, because this wasn't about help, it was about entitlement. And in my mind, I saw it like it happened yesterday, 10 years ago, a rainy night, a 16-year-old girl on my porch with wet hair and shaking hands, clutching a plastic bag like it was the last piece of her life. The same girl my son threw out when she was pregnant, the same girl I took in, the same girl who helped me build this business. I glanced toward the office doorway and saw Lily standing there now, my granddaughter. Not a scared teenager anymore, a grown woman, strong, arms crossed, eyes steady. Veronica followed my gaze and her smile sharpened. "The Covenant community has been struggling. Donations are down. We've sacrificed so much for God's work." So that was the real reason. Not family, not regret, money for the church. Veronica leaned closer. "And then we saw the magazine article. We saw what you've built. We saw Lily thriving." Her eyes flicked to Lily like she was looking at property. "It's only fair we share in what she built." Lily's voice didn't shake. "You didn't share in anything when you threw me out." Nathan flinched, but he still didn't defend her. Veronica turned to Lily, calm and cold. "You were a child, vulnerable, manipulated." Lily stepped forward a little. "You called me a disgrace." Veronica's jaw tightened. "We were teaching you consequences." I raised my hand. "Enough." The room went quiet. I looked at Nathan. "You came here for $500,000, I said. "What happens if I say no?" Veronica didn't hesitate. Her smile became sharp as a blade. "Then we tell the truth," she said. Lily laughed once, bitter. "What truth?" Veronica's eyes narrowed. "That your grandmother stole you, that she manipulated you, that she turned you against your parents, against God." My hands curled on the edge of my desk. I could feel my pulse in my fingers. They weren't just threatening my business. They were threatening Lily's name, her story, her dignity. Veronica lowered her voice, almost gentle. "We'll destroy everything," she said. "Your reputation, your customers, your suppliers." Pastor Garrett leaned in, voice smooth. "Businesses are fragile things. One bad story spreads fast." Nathan finally looked up, but not at me. He looked at Lily like he wanted to say something but didn't know how to be a father anymore. I studied all three of them, my son, his wife, their pastor, and I realized something that made my stomach go cold. They were confident, not hopeful, not unsure, confident. which meant they believed they had power over us. They thought I would panic, beg, pay. But the truth was, I had been preparing for years. Because people who abandon their child don't suddenly grow a conscience. They come back when they smell money. And when they do, you better be ready. I leaned back slowly and forced my voice to stay calm. I need time to think, I said. Veronica's relief flashed across her face. She thought that meant I was folding. Pastor Garrett nodded like he was blessing my surrender. Veronica stood. 3 days, she said. Then we act. At the door, she turned to Lily one last time. You could still come home, she said. You and Sophie. You just have to leave her. She nodded at me like I was poison. Lily smiled, small, cold, fearless. I am home. Veronica's face hardened. Then you've made your choice. They left. When the bell over the shop door chimed and faded, Lily stepped into my office and looked at me. What are we going to do? She asked. I looked at my granddaughter, the woman who survived what they did, and I told her the truth. We're going to let them think they're winning, I said quietly, and then we're going to show them what happens when you threaten the people I love. 10 years earlier, my life was smaller and quieter. One shop, one tired apartment, one kitchen table where I counted receipts under a dull yellow light every night. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough to remind me that time doesn't stop just because you're exhausted. That night felt ordinary, peaceful even. Then there was a knock. Not a polite knock, not the kind a neighbor makes when they need sugar. It was sharp, urgent, desperate, the kind of knock that says something has already gone wrong. I stood up slowly, joints aching, and walked to the door. When I opened it, rain rushed in with the cold air, and there she was. A girl stood on my porch, soaked through, shoes standing in a puddle that spread toward my feet. Her coat was too small, sleeves stopping short of her wrists. Her hair was wet and tangled, clinging to her face. She clutched a thin plastic shopping bag to her chest, like it was the only thing holding her together. And even though I hadn't seen her in years, I knew her immediately. Those eyes, Nathan's eyes, my son's eyes, but scared, red around the edges, braced for rejection. "Grandma Evelyn?" she whispered. Her voice cracked on my name. I didn't ask who she was. I didn't ask why she was there. I didn't ask what had happened. When the world lights someone on fire, you don't make them explain before you give them water. I stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in," I said. She hesitated, like she expected me to change my mind. I didn't. She stepped inside, dripping rain onto my floor, shoulders shaking. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt, not because I was afraid of her, but because I knew who might come looking for her. She stood against the wall, clutching that plastic bag, eyes darting around like she was waiting to be told to leave. I grabbed the old blue towel hanging by the radiator. It was thin and warm. I handed it to her. She pressed it to her face and breathed in like she'd been holding her breath for miles. No thank you. No explanation. Her whole body was trembling too hard for words. "Sit down before you fall down," I said. She sat at the kitchen table, still holding the bag tight. "I didn't know where else to go," she said quickly, like the sentence had been rehearsed in her head. Then her voice broke. "They threw me out." My chest tightened. "Tonight?" I asked. She nodded, eyes fixed on the table. "Veronica said I shamed the family," she whispered. "Dad just stared at the wall." I turned toward the kettle, not because I needed tea yet, but because my hands needed something to do. She told me to pack and leave, said I should make peace with God outside the house because there wasn't any left for me inside. I waited, hoping, stupidly, that she'd say her father stopped it. He didn't. "He didn't say anything," Lily said quietly. "He wouldn't even look at me." That hurt more than the shouting would have. I glanced at her hands. They were shaking. "Did they let you bring anything?" I asked. She opened the plastic bag and dumped it onto the table. One clean shirt,
underwear, and a worn Bible with gold letters flaking off the cover. She didn't touch the Bible. "I'm pregnant," she said. Just like that. The room changed. Not because I was shocked, but because suddenly everything made sense. The anger, the speed, the cruelty. This wasn't about faith. This was about embarrassment. "Who's the boy?" I asked gently. "He's from church." When I told him, he said it wasn't his, told me to keep quiet or I'd ruin everything for him. She pressed a hand to her stomach. "Mom said this proved I was a sinner. She said throwing me out was an example for the other girls." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "How far did you walk?" I asked. "All the way," she said with a small shrug. "I thought about the library, but it was closed. I remembered your street. I wasn't sure you'd let me in." That landed hard. I handed her a mug of tea and a plate with bread and butter. "The cold isn't your fault, and neither is their stupidity." She ate like someone who hadn't eaten properly in days. Quiet, focused, grateful but ashamed. After a while, she spoke again. "I thought maybe you hated me because of them." I sat down across from her. "No," I said firmly. "I never hated you. I hated what they became." I wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and watched her relax just a little. "You can sleep on the sofa. You're safe tonight." I left the hallway light on. Some people need proof the darkness isn't complete. I sat at my kitchen table long after she fell asleep, staring at the empty chair where my son used to sit when he was her age. And that night, as rain tapped against the window and the clock kept ticking, I made a quiet promise to myself. Lily would never be thrown away again, no matter what it cost me.
The morning after Lily arrived, the apartment felt different. Not louder, not busier, heavier. Like the air itself knew something important had happened and was waiting to see what we would do next. I woke up early, out of habit, and found Lily already awake. She was sitting upright on the sofa, blanket pulled tight around her shoulders, hands folded in her lap. She looked like she'd been awake for hours. "Did you sleep?" I asked. She nodded, but it wasn't convincing. I put the kettle on. Routine matters when everything else feels broken. It tells people that life didn't end overnight, even if it feels like it did. She watched me move around the kitchen like she was afraid to get in the way. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now," she said quietly. I slid a plate of toast toward her. "Eat first," I said, "then we'll figure things out." She ate slowly, carefully, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to enjoy it. When she finished, I handed her a dish towel. "You can help me with the dishes," I said. She looked surprised, not offended, relieved. Helping meant she wasn't a burden. That morning, I took her to the shop. Crawford's Organic wasn't much to look at. 4 narrow aisles, a cooler in the back, a register that stuck if you pressed the buttons too hard, but it paid my bills and it gave me purpose after my husband died. Lily stepped inside like she was entering unfamiliar territory. Her eyes tracked everything: corners, exits, people. Trauma teaches you to scan for danger before comfort. I handed her a box cutter and a stack of invoices. "Canned goods here," I said. "Dry goods there. If you don't know something, ask. Don't guess." She nodded and got to work. No complaints, no questions, just effort. She made mistakes at first, put items in the wrong place, labeled things incorrectly. I corrected her quietly, without raising my voice or embarrassing her. She learned fast. By the end of the first week, she could run the register. By the end of the month, she knew the regulars by name. And every time a customer smiled at her like she belonged, her shoulders dropped a little more. I didn't ask about the baby until she was ready. One evening, as we locked up, she said, "I have an appointment next week." "I'll take you," I replied. That was how it went. Appointments turned into plans, plans turned into preparation. Her belly grew slowly, then all at once. I bought maternity clothes from the thrift store, made sure she ate more than toast, helped her sign up for online classes so she could finish high school.
She studied at night after the shop closed, belly pressed against the table, determination written all over her face. When the baby came, it was long and painful. I stayed beside her through all of it, not because I was brave, because no one should go through something like that alone. When Sophie arrived, red-faced, screaming, alive, Lily cried in a way that sounded like years of fear leaving her body. She held her daughter and whispered, "We're gonna be okay." And for the first time, I believed it too. The first year was hard. Sophie cried at night. Lily learned to function on little sleep. She still showed up at the shop every morning. She wanted to do everything herself. Feed Sophie, change her, rock her, prove to herself more than anyone that she wasn't weak. I watched her learn motherhood the same way she learned the register, one mistake at a time, one correction, one small victory. By the time Sophie turned 2, Lily had finished her diploma and started taking business classes online. She brought me ideas, good ones, expanding produce, carrying local honey, adding bulk grains. I let her try. Most of them worked. The shop grew, not fast, but steady. 3 years later, we opened a second location, then a third. Lily managed the new stores while I kept the original running. Sophie grew up between the aisles. She learned to count by stacking cans, learned to read by sorting labels. Customers adored her. And slowly, without speeches, without promises, we built something real. Not just a business, a life. We didn't talk about Nathan or Veronica. There was no point. Some families throw people away. Some open the door. And every night when I locked up the shop and walked home with Lily and Sophie, I knew we had chosen the right kind of family. But success has a way of being seen, and when it is, the past sometimes comes back looking for a share.
For 10 years, our life stayed quiet. Busy, yes, hard, definitely, but quiet. We opened the shop every morning, counted inventory, helped customers, went home tired but steady. Lily cooked dinner most nights. I helped Sophie with homework. We lived inside a routine that felt safe because it didn't draw attention. That was the point. We weren't hiding, but we weren't advertising either. Then the phone rang one afternoon and everything shifted. A journalist introduced herself and said she was writing a feature about family-owned businesses in the region. Someone had recommended us. "She wants to tell our story," Lily said later, holding the phone like it might bite her. Lily hesitated. I could see the worry in her eyes. Being seen still felt dangerous to her. "We don't have anything to hide," I said, "and people should know what you've built." After a long pause, she agreed. The interview took place at the original shop. The journalist was polite, professional, and genuinely interested. She asked about my husband's death, about starting the business, about Lily joining me. We didn't share everything, just enough. Widow starts a shop, granddaughter helps, single mother grows it, community supports it. Simple, clean, true. Sophie sat beside us during the interview, swinging her legs, smiling every time someone looked her way. The photographer took pictures of us behind the counter, stocking shelves, standing in front of the store. When it was over, Lily let out a long breath. "That wasn't so bad," she said. The article came out 2 months later. The headline was bold, the photos flattering, the story kind. Lily bought 5 copies and brought them home like trophies. That night, we went out to dinner, a small Italian place 2 blocks away. Sophie got sauce on her chin. Lily laughed and wiped it off. "To family," Lily said, raising her glass. I smiled and clinked mine against hers. But inside, something didn't settle, because success has a sound, and people who've been listening for it know exactly when to come knocking. The next morning, customers congratulated us. The mailman did too. Even strangers came in saying they'd read the article. By noon, the phone had rung 4 times with questions about wholesale orders. Business picked up fast, and with it came something else: attention. That night, after Lily and Sophie went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and reread the article slowly. I looked for anything that gave too much away. Our address wasn't listed, but the shop name was. The neighborhood was mentioned,
Anyone determined enough could find us. I folded the magazine and set it aside. Then I checked the locks, windows, fire escape latch. Everything secure. Old habits die hard. I told myself I was being paranoid, but deep down, I knew better. People like Nathan and Veronica didn't disappear forever. They waited. They waited until there was something worth taking. 3 days after the magazine hit the stands, Lily came into the back office with her face pale. "There's someone here to see you. 2 people." I didn't need to ask who. I followed her to the front of the shop. Nathan stood near the register, looking older and smaller than I remembered. Veronica was beside him, posture stiff, hands clasped like she was waiting for judgment. They didn't look surprised to see Lily. They didn't look ashamed. They looked interested, like buyers examining merchandise. Veronica smiled first. "Evelyn," she said. Not Mom, just my name. "We saw the article." I nodded once. "It's impressive," Nathan added quietly. Veronica shot him a look and he fell silent. That was my first warning. The second was the way Veronica's eyes moved, not over Lily's face, but over the shop, the shelves, the register, the office door. She wasn't here to reconnect, she was here to measure. And as I stood there listening to her talk about family and obligations, I felt something settle deep in my bones. This wasn't a surprise, this was an inevitability. Because when you survive without someone, when you thrive without them, there are people who don't see that as proof of your strength. They see it as an opportunity, and they always believe they deserve a share. I invited them into the back office, not because I trusted them, but because I wanted to see exactly how far they were willing to go. As I closed the door behind us, I realized something important. This was no longer about the past. This was about protecting the future. And whatever they were planning, I needed to be ready for it. The moment the office door closed behind us, the air changed. The room was small, just a desk, 3 chairs, a filing cabinet, but somehow it felt tighter with Nathan and Veronica inside it. Lily stayed near the doorway, arms crossed, not sitting, not leaving. Veronica noticed. She always noticed. She smiled at Lily like she used to when Lily was a child, the smile that said, "I'm in control here." "We don't need an audience," Veronica said. "She stays," I replied. Nathan shifted in his chair. He looked uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to do anything about it. Veronica folded her hands neatly on her lap. "We saw the article," she said again, like repetition would turn it into a blessing, "and we realized something." I waited. She leaned forward slightly. "We realized how much you've benefited from our daughter." Lily let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Benefited," she said. "You threw me out." Veronica turned to her calmly. "We corrected you," she said. "There's a difference." That word again. Corrected. Like Lily was a mistake that needed fixing. I looked at Nathan. "Is that how you remember it?" I asked. He swallowed. "We did what we thought was right." "You did what was easiest," Lily said. "You chose the church over your own child." Nathan flinched but stayed silent. Veronica took over again. She always did. "We're not here to argue about the past," she said. "We're here to discuss responsibility." She pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse and placed it on my desk. Typed, formal, ridiculous. "Our request is simple," she said. $500,000 and a public acknowledgement that Lily's success reflects the values we raised her with. Lily stared at the paper like it might burn her. "You want credit," she said quietly, "for surviving you." Veronica's eyes hardened. "You wouldn't have survived without discipline," she snapped, "without guidance." "You locked the door," Lily said. "You gave me a Bible and pushed me into the rain." Finally, Nathan looked up. "That's not fair," he said weakly. Lily turned to him. "Then tell her she's lying." He didn't. That silence was louder than any shout. I slid the paper back across the desk. "And if I refuse?" I asked. Veronica didn't hesitate. "Then we tell people what really happened," she said. The room went still. What exactly do you plan to tell them? I asked. She smiled, thin and confident. That you stole our daughter, she said. That you manipulated a frightened teenager and turned her against her parents. That you used her labor to build your business. That's a lie, Lily said, her voice shaking now, not with fear, but anger. Is it? Veronica replied smoothly. You were 16, pregnant, vulnerable. People will believe that story. Pastor Garrett's words echoed in my mind. Businesses are fragile things. Veronica continued, We'll go to your suppliers, your customers, the media. She paused. People don't like stories about stolen children and hidden pregnancies. Nathan finally spoke, his voice low. We don't want to do this. We just need help. Help. I studied my son's face and saw the truth underneath. Not regret, not love, fear. Fear of losing his standing, fear of the church collapsing, fear of being exposed. You're not asking for help, you're demanding money. Veronica straightened. We're asking for what's fair. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding but voice steady. You threw your daughter away. You don't get to collect interest on her survival. Veronica's smile vanished. Then you've made your choice, she said coldly. She stood, smoothing her skirt. We'll give you 3 days. After that, we act. At the door, she turned to Lily one last time. You can still come home. You and Sophie will forgive you. Forgive. For surviving. Lily didn't hesitate. I already chose my family. You're not it. Veronica's face twisted. Then you'll regret this. They left. The bell over the shop door chimed softly, like nothing terrible had just happened. When the sound faded, Lily sank into the chair Veronica had been sitting in. They're going to try to destroy us, she said. Yes, I replied. She looked at me, searching my face. What do we do? I stood and went to my desk. I opened the drawer, just enough to see the thick folder inside, the one I'd been building for years. We let them think they have power, I said quietly, and then we take it away. Because betrayal doesn't always come screaming. Sometimes it comes smiling, and I was done letting it win.
After they left, the shop went back to normal. Customers browsed, the register beeped, someone asked where the almond flour was. From the outside, nothing had changed, but inside me, everything had. Lily locked the front door that night with more force than usual. Sophie was already asleep when we got home, curled up with her stuffed rabbit, unaware that the people who should have protected her were now a threat again. Lily sat at the kitchen table, arms wrapped around herself. They're serious, she said. They really think they can destroy us. They are serious, I agreed, which is why we can't panic. She looked up at me. You sound like you expected this. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I made tea. 2 mugs, same as I had the night she arrived at my door all those years ago. Then I sat across from her and told her the truth. I have been preparing for this since the night they threw you out, I said. Her eyes widened. Preparing how? I stood and went to the hallway closet. Behind winter coats and old boxes, I pulled out a locked file case. I set it on the table, unlocked it, and opened it. Inside were folders, notes, copies of documents, dates written in my handwriting, names. Lily stared. You kept all this? I didn't plan revenge, I said calmly. I planned protection. I told her what I'd done over the years, how after she came to me, I couldn't stop thinking about the church that convinced parents to abandon their child and call it holy, how I started paying attention, reading, listening, asking quiet questions, how I hired a private investigator not to stalk them, but to understand the organization they trusted more than their own daughter. What I found didn't surprise me, I said, but it did worry me. The church wasn't just strict. It was predatory.
Money demanded in the name of obedience. Members pressured to give more than they could afford. Questions punished. Silence rewarded. And at the center of it all, Pastor Garrett, living well while his followers struggled. Lily covered her mouth with her hand. "You knew," she whispered, "all this time?" "I suspected," I said. Then I confirmed. I told her about the financial patterns, the shell accounts, the consulting fees, the way donations disappeared. I didn't act because it wasn't my place, and because I needed proof, not guesses. Lily shook her head slowly. So when they came asking for money, they walked into a trap they didn't know existed, I finished. The next morning, I called Thomas Bennett, our lawyer. I told him everything. The demand, the threat, the number. He listened quietly. "That's extortion," he said finally. "Yes," I replied, "and I want it documented." Then I made another call, and another. A private investigator I trusted, a journalist who had been quietly investigating the same church, and finally, a man I had spoken to once before, but never thought I'd meet again. Special Agent David Park, Financial Crimes. I didn't tell Lily everything at once. Some things you don't put on someone who already survived too much. But I did tell her this. "We're not going to attack them," I said. "We're going to let them expose themselves." "How?" she asked. "By giving them exactly what they think they want: time." Over the next 2 days, I did 3 important things. First, I made sure our house and the shops were secure. Cameras checked, records backed up. Every receipt, every tax form, every contract perfectly organized. If they tried to accuse us, we would be ready. Second, I recorded everything: calls, visits, messages. People who think they're in control say reckless things. And finally, I told them to come back on Friday. 2 days, I said calmly over the phone. "I need time to consider your offer." Veronica sounded pleased. She thought I was counting money. She thought I was breaking. She had no idea I was setting the stage. Friday wasn't about deciding whether to pay. Friday was about deciding how this would end. That night, Lily sat beside me on the couch while Sophie slept. "I'm not scared," Lily said quietly. "Not like before." I looked at her. "Good, because this part isn't about fear." She nodded. "It's about truth." Yes, and truth is something they've been running from for a long time. When Friday came, I was ready. They thought they were coming to collect. They didn't know they were walking into consequences. And once the door closed behind them, there would be no more pretending.
They arrived on Friday, right at noon, punctual, confident, like people who believed the outcome was already decided. Nathan walked in first, shoulders tense. Veronica followed, posture stiff, eyes scanning the shop like she was already planning how to spend money that didn't belong to her. Pastor Garrett came last, calm and smiling, dressed like a man who expected respect. I met them at the door. "Come in," I said. They followed me to the back office. Lily was already there, sitting quietly in the corner. I wanted her to witness this, not for revenge, but for closure. Pastor Garrett took the chair across from my desk without being invited. "So," Veronica said, sitting beside him, "have you made a decision?" I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my desk drawer. Veronica's eyes flicked down. Pastor Garrett's smile tightened just slightly. I pulled out a thick manila folder and placed it on the desk. It landed with a heavy thud. Pastor Garrett tilted his head. "What's that?" I met his eyes. "That," I said calmly, "is everything I know about you." The smile disappeared. I opened the folder slowly. The first page was a photograph. Pastor Garrett standing beside a silver luxury car, keys in hand, smiling proudly. "Nice car," I said. Didn't realize church donations were that generous.
Veronica frowned. That was a gift. I turned the page. A photograph of a large lakefront house. Modern, expensive. And this, I asked. Another gift? Pastor Garrett straightened in his chair. You're crossing a line. No, I replied. You crossed it years ago. I pulled out bank statements next. Highlighted lines, dates, transfers. These are donation records from the Covenant community, I said. Money given by families living paycheck to paycheck. I tapped one line. And here's a transfer labeled consulting fees. $50,000 sent directly to your personal account. The room went silent. Veronica's face drained of color. Nathan leaned forward, squinting at the papers. That's not, he started. I slid another document toward him. His name was on it. A deposit from the church. $20,000. Nathan froze. I didn't know, he whispered. I looked at him. You cashed the check. His mouth opened, then closed. I continued. There are dozens of transfers like this, I said. Over 5 years. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Pastor Garrett stood abruptly. This is slander. I didn't raise my voice. It's evidence. I pulled out another stack, written testimonies. These are statements from former church members, I said. People pressured into giving money they didn't have. Families torn apart for questioning you. I looked directly at him. A woman named Margaret Lewis lost her home after being told tithing half her income was the only way to be saved. Pastor Garrett's jaw tightened. Veronica snapped, You can't prove any of this. I closed the folder gently. I already have, I said. They stared at me. I gave copies of everything in this folder to the FBI 2 weeks ago, Financial Crimes Division. The room felt suddenly very small. Nathan's face went pale. Veronica's hands began to shake. Pastor Garrett's voice was sharp now. You had no right. I had every right, I said. You threatened my family. You demanded money. You tried to destroy us. I leaned forward. You thought we were alone. You thought we were weak. I stood up. You were wrong. There was a knock on the office door. I opened it. 2 men in dark suits stood in the hallway, badges clipped to their belts. Mrs. Crawford? One asked. Special Agent Park. Silas Garrett? Pastor Garrett took a step back. Veronica's voice broke. What is this? Agent Park stepped inside calmly. Silas Garrett. We're investigating financial fraud, tax evasion, and an attempted extortion reported earlier this week. Veronica shouted, We didn't extort anyone. Agent Park pulled out a small recorder. Your last visit was recorded, the one where you demanded $500,000 and threatened reputational harm. Silence. Nathan dropped his head into his hands. Pastor Garrett tried to speak, but the second agent stepped forward. You can cooperate now, or this becomes more difficult. They were asked to come with the agents. Nathan stood slowly, looking at Lily. His voice cracked. I didn't think it would go this far. Lily met his eyes. It went that far when you locked the door on me. He had no answer. As they were let out, Veronica kept her head high, still clinging to dignity that no longer protected her. Pastor Garrett muttered about lawyers. The door closed. The office was quiet. Lily stood and walked over to me. She didn't speak. She just placed her hand on my shoulder. I looked down at the folder. Years of waiting, preparing, protecting. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. But the truth still had one more thing to do. It had to be heard.
The shop didn't close early that day. Customers kept coming in, unaware that 3 lives had just collapsed in the back office. Receipts printed, bags rustled. Someone asked where the rice flour was. Life doesn't pause for justice. Lily stood by the register for a long moment after the agents left, staring at nothing. Then she took a slow breath, straightened her shoulders, and rang up the next customer like she'd done it 1,000 times before. That was when I knew she was really free. Not because her parents were gone, but because they no longer controlled her reactions. The news broke 3 days later. I was restocking apples when Lily came rushing over with her phone in her hand, eyes wide. "Grandma," she said, "it's everywhere." The headline filled the screen. Cult leader arrested in major financial fraud investigation. I wiped my hands on my apron and took the phone. The article was thorough, cold, precise. Years of donations misused, shell accounts, personal assets disguised as gifts, testimonies from former members who had been pressured, shamed, and silenced. Pastor Silas Garrett's name was everywhere. Nathan and Veronica were mentioned too, not as leaders but as participants in an attempted extortion connected to the investigation. Their names sat there in black and white, public, permanent. Lily watched my face carefully. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it. "I feel relieved," I said finally. "Not happy, just done." Over the next week, more articles came out. Local news, then regional, then national. A journalist named Claire Hoffman published her long investigation into the Covenant community. She'd been working on it quietly for over a year. My files had been the missing piece. Former members came forward in waves. Stories poured out, families torn apart, savings drained, children punished for questioning authority. The church doors closed within a month. The sign was taken down quietly in the middle of the night. Nathan and Veronica didn't contact us. They weren't allowed to. The restraining order came through quickly. No calls, no visits, no messages. Lily read it twice, then folded the paper and put it in a drawer. I don't want to frame it. I don't want them living on my wall. That was strength. Business didn't suffer the way Veronica had promised. It changed. Some customers asked questions, some whispered, but most stayed. A few new ones came in just to say, "I'm glad you stood up." Suppliers didn't pull out. They doubled down. People don't like bullies, especially ones hiding behind faith. One afternoon, Lily and I sat in the back office with tea. Sophie was at a friend's house. Lily stared at the floor. "Do you think they'll ever say sorry?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. "No." She nodded slowly. "I used to think I needed that, an apology, closure." "And now?" I asked. She looked up at me, eyes clear. "Now I think I just needed them to stop." That night, Sophie asked why we'd been on the news. Lily knelt in front of her and chose her words carefully. Some people were hurting others, and they got caught. Sophie thought about that. "Are we safe?" she asked. "Yes," Lily said, without hesitation. "We are." Sophie nodded, satisfied. Children understand safety better than explanations. A few weeks later, my lawyer called. Pastor Garrett was facing serious prison time. Nathan and Veronica had accepted a plea deal. Probation, community service, and financial penalties. And the restraining order would stay in place permanently. He said, "They won't be coming back." I hung up and sat quietly for a long time. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something older. Peace. The kind that comes when a long, heavy door finally closes. That evening, Lily cooked dinner. Sophie set the table. I washed the dishes. Ordinary sounds, ordinary motions, extraordinary freedom. As I dried my hands, I realized something important. They didn't lose because we destroyed them. They lost because the truth finally met the light, and when it did,
It did exactly what it always does. It ended the lie.
After the headlines faded, life didn't suddenly become perfect. That surprised me. I thought there might be fireworks, relief so big it felt like flying, some grand sense of victory. Instead, justice felt quiet, heavy, like setting down a weight you didn't realize you'd been carrying for years. The shop kept running, Lily kept managing the newer locations, Sophie kept growing, asking questions, laughing too loud in grocery aisles. But something inside all of us had shifted. We weren't bracing anymore. For years, Lily had lived like something bad might happen if she relaxed too much. Like safety could be taken away if she wasn't careful enough, good enough, obedient enough. Now, I watched her move through the world differently. She still worked hard, still planned ahead, but she laughed more. She slept better, and she stopped checking the locks twice at night. One afternoon, weeks after the arrests, Lily and I sat in the back office going over inventory. The framed article from the magazine still hung on the wall, but it felt different now. Less like a spotlight and more like a milestone we'd already passed. Lily stared at it for a moment. "I used to think success would make them see me," she said quietly. "See you how?" I asked. "As worth something," she replied, "as their daughter." I closed the ledger and looked at her. "They saw you," I said. "They just didn't value the right things." She nodded slowly. "I don't feel angry anymore," she admitted. "Is that strange?" "No," I said. "That's what healing sounds like." Anger had protected her for a long time. It had given her strength when she needed to survive. But now, she didn't need it anymore. The lawyer called again with updates. Court dates, sentencing timelines, procedures that felt distant and procedural, like reading instructions for a machine that had already done its job. Pastor Garrett would likely spend years behind bars. Nathan and Veronica would carry the consequences quietly. No platform, no authority, no power over us ever again. Lily didn't ask for details. She didn't need them. One evening, Sophie came home from school quieter than usual. At dinner, she poked at her food. "Mom?" she asked finally. "Yes, sweetheart?" "Why didn't Grandpa and Grandma want you when you were little?" The room went still. These were the moments Lily feared, the ones without simple answers. Lily took a breath and looked at her daughter. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "people choose rules over love, and that's not something a child can fix." Sophie thought about that. "Did Grandma Evelyn fix it?" she asked. Lily smiled softly. "No," she said. "She just opened the door." That night, after Sophie went to bed, Lily sat beside me on the couch. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Regret what?" "Taking me in, fighting all of this." I didn't need time to think. "No," I said, "not even once." She leaned her head on my shoulder, the way she used to when she was younger and exhausted from long shifts. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't answer. Some gratitude doesn't need a response. Outside, the city hummed softly. Cars passed, lights flickered in windows. Life kept moving forward, indifferent to the battles we'd fought. And that was okay, because justice, I'd learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like a mother who sleeps through the night, a child who feels safe asking questions, a grandmother who doesn't jump when the phone rings. Justice isn't revenge. It's the end of fear. And as I sat there with Lily, listening to the quiet we earned, I realized something important. We didn't just survive what they did to us. We outgrew it. And nothing they ever said or believed or demanded could take that away. One chapter was almost finished, but the most important part of the story still remained. Not what we escaped,
but what we chose to build next.
A year passed, not quietly, but steadily. The kind of passing time that doesn't erase things, just puts them in their proper place. The shop expanded again, a fourth location, small but promising. Lily handled most of it now. Negotiations, suppliers, hiring. She had a calm confidence about her that still surprised me sometimes. Not arrogance, ownership. Sophie grew taller, louder, more curious. She started helping after school, backpack still on, asking Lily where things went like she was being trusted with something important, because she was. One afternoon, I stood in the doorway of the original shop and watched them together. Lily explaining how to rotate stock, Sophie listening seriously, nodding, then doing it exactly right. It hit me then, harder than anything else had. This was the legacy. Not the business, not the articles, not the court cases. This. A child growing up without fear of being thrown away. That evening, the three of us walked home together. Sophie was telling a story about school, using her hands too much, making Lily laugh. I followed a step behind, listening. The sky was turning purple, streetlights flickered on one by one. The neighborhood felt familiar, safe. At home, Lily cooked dinner. Sophie set the table. I washed the dishes. Ordinary. Perfect. Later, after Sophie went to bed, Lily and I sat on the couch with tea. The apartment hummed softly, the refrigerator, distant traffic, the sound of a life not under threat. I was thinking today, Lily said, about what you said, about letting them think they were winning. I smiled faintly. They always do. She shook her head. I don't think they ever understood what winning actually looks like. I waited. They thought power was money, she continued. Control, obedience. She looked at me. But power is choosing who gets access to you. I nodded. That's right, I said. And you chose well. She leaned back, thoughtful. I used to feel ashamed, she admitted, for needing help, for being young, for being scared. I turned toward her. Needing help is not weakness, I said. It's proof you wanted to live. She smiled at that. Outside, a siren passed and faded. Somewhere, someone laughed. Life kept going. And for the first time, it felt like it was moving with us instead of against us. A few weeks later, Sophie brought home a school assignment, a single page with a question at the top. What does family mean to you? She handed it to Lily proudly. I wrote about us, she said. That night, Lily showed it to me. In careful handwriting, Sophie had written, family is who shows up when you're scared. Family doesn't lock the door. Family stays. I had to blink a few times before I could speak. That's very good, I said. Sophie smiled. Mom helped a little. No, Lily said softly. I think she already knew. That was the moment I understood something deeply. Nathan and Veronica thought family was blood. Pastor Garrett thought family was obedience. They were all wrong. Family is responsibility. It's protection. It's opening the door and never using love as leverage. I don't know what Nathan thinks now. I don't know if he regrets anything. And I no longer care. Some people lose the right to be part of your story when they try to rewrite it for profit. And that's not cruelty. That's clarity. What I do know is this. When Lily knocked on my door 10 years ago, soaked and terrified, I didn't save her. I gave her a place to stand while she saved herself. And together we built something that couldn't be taken, not by lies, not by threats, not by the past. So if there's one lesson I'd leave you with, it's this. When someone abandons their child, they lose the right to benefit from that child's future. Love is not a loan. Family is not a debt.
And survival does not come with a bill attached. If you open the door for someone when they have nowhere else to go, you might just change generations. I did, and I would do it again every single time.